Connie Reguli, lawyer, grandmother, and avid advocate for reform of child protective services in the US. She runs a forum called the Family Forward Project that has chapters in many states of the USA. She fights fiercely for her clients and is not scared to get on the wrong side of judges for that, a rare quality in a lawyer. Please put your hands together for Connie. At her age, she has undertaken the long 30-hour journey here from Tennessee to New Delhi as an international ambassador for CPS reform.
Well, good evening, and thank you all very much for caring enough to be here. And I'm going to tell you, I've been at this 3 decades. I'm not going to be able to tell you everything in 8 minutes. I do have these great little cards, and I think I have one for almost everybody. And there is a little QR code. It will take you to a website. It has my name on the back. I have over 100 videos on YouTube. You can watch what I do, including watching me film in live time the stealing of a 4-week-old baby. And it's heart-wrenching, and it will give you that taste of reality. And I will say, much as our last speaker, I love my mother. I love my mother. And you know what? My mother wasn't perfect. And I know that in the world that we live in today, I would have been ripped from my mother. I had lost a father. She had a stepfather. I had a stepfather that was an alcoholic. He was violent. I lived in a small town. It was simple. My mother was a divorcee in the 60s. That was a scarlet letter in and of itself. And I know I would have been ripped from her. She ended up being a very successful businesswoman, very, very strong. And I am my mother. And that's why I stand here today. I became a lawyer just to do some good. I was smart. It was a second career for me. I wanted to step out. I just wanted to do something good. I thought I can do this. I can advocate. I can encourage people. And I started working with families. And over 3 decades, I worked with families against the government. And I saw a government in the United States of America that became increasingly more and more and more aggressive. And they were attacking vulnerable families much like my mother. They were families who were young parents. Maybe they were struggling with addiction. Maybe there was poverty. Maybe they had lost somebody. Maybe they had lost their financial supporter of their family, and the children would be taken from them. And I became more and more concerned about it, and I started studying it. And I started studying the finances in America. And there is a perverted financial incentive to remove children from their home. And the federal government sends money to the states. That is an incredible entitlement. And it's a dollar for dollar match. It's a use it or lose it scheme. It's it's never subject to sequester. And if there's an appropriations problem in the United States, and it's an entitlement. And then in 1997, they passed the Adoption and Safe Families Act. And you know why? Because they lost children in the foster care system and they had no idea where they were. And so they started a new system, and they said, now we're going to get those kids out of foster care. And the way we're going to do it is we're going to give the states extra money, and we're going to give them extra money to give them new families. They totally social engineered the family in the United States of America for over 300,000 children a year. This is over millions and millions and millions of children. And then they gave the states a bonus check for every child they adopted into the home of a stranger. They get a $10,000 check. In my state of Tennessee, which is probably one of the average states in the United States, average population, maybe average income, they got $1.5 million just in the bonus checks that they put the price tag on the heads of children. It is a system that cannot be sustained. It is a humanitarian crisis. And I don't know what we do except to have a whole nation, perhaps your nation, to call out and to shame the Western world and to say no more. We have, through the history of mankind, we have had many humanitarian crises. We have done, I'm sort of a historian of different things that we have done. United States has this history of where we stole children off the Indian reservations and we put them in boarding schools, where we involuntary sterilization of people who were considered retarded. right? We have had children that they picked up off the streets of New York and put them on orphan trains and sent them out west and stood them on train stations and let farmers come and pick the children to work for them. And we have this history, but somehow, some way, those chains get broken. And when those chains get broken, it comes from the voice of the people. It does not come from the politicians. And so I have, in the United States, I have put together about 5 years ago, and the way I met Saranya is I started reaching out to people through social media. And social media became an incredible platform to be able to collect families who are suffering from the same crisis. Because the stories that you've heard from Marius and from our other speaker these patterns are exactly the same. But there's one more they didn't talk about, and that is the silencing of the victims. Because they tell them they're confidential. It's against the best interest of your child to put your child's name out there on social media, and they get retaliated against if they go and they start talking, even if they go to a legislator, or if they try to file a complaint at central office, or if they file a complaint on the judge, they are retaliated against. And so I know what my spiritual gifts are. They are encouragement and advocacy. And so that is my goal, is to use that to families, to reach out to families, to turn more mothers, instead of the mothers that have become suicide victims for losing their children, which I have had. I have had mothers overdose because they see no hope. To turn more mothers into this kind of mother that we have with us today. And that is the one who does not stop, who continues to fight, who seeks other help and is willing to listen to them and to continue to take that next step every day. And one of the powerful things in the film to me, and I'm so grateful, I don't know if the filmmaker is still able to listen by Zoom, but there were many things about the way she produced the film that were so compelling to me. And one was the mother's fight, but the other thing was, throughout the course of the film, was the mother's flashbacks of her time and her love and her care for her children, and that time that her children were her reality, and just as the children's reality was their mother. Now, we know in America, we know the outcomes of foster care are disastrous. We know if you have been a foster child, you are more likely to commit suicide, be homeless, never go to college, be an unwed parent, and have your own children taken. We know that. We know the outcomes are disastrous. And yet we have this same mentality of believing that we can rehome a child and break all of those bonds and put them in an environment that is a stranger to them. And I even had a juvenile court judge to say to me that they were only strangers for 5 minutes. And I just shook my head. So what will it take? And that is what, even having an audience that even if you've not experienced it, I tell people that I talk to that within 3 degrees of separation, if you're in a Western country, such as United Kingdom, such as Norway, Australia, Canada, United States of America, within 3 degrees of separation, you know a family that's been affected. It may be your hairdresser's sister. It may be a teacher's grandchild. There is somebody within that reach that's been affected, and that is also my message. So thank you again. I encourage you as a nation to be the voice that says no more.